guys, I'm Kallie.
And I'm Jean-Luc.
And Call of Duty World War II has officially been revealed.
Officially.
This is a World War II game about the European theater, so no Pacific theater, taking place basically between 44 and 45, maybe some leeway there. But we went to Sledgehammer, the developer, a little while ago to get a behind-the-scenes look, and we got to see two scenes that you guys haven't seen yet.
Yes.
Yeah. We also found out, and this is a cool thing that we didn't actually get to see in action, but that while you're primarily following an American squad, you'll be able to play a female French resistance fighter.
Yeah, it sounded pretty cool. They described it as sort of like basically their version of All Gillied Up, where it's going to be sort of stealth-based, and killing Nazis. Yeah. It sounded really rad, but unfortunately we didn't get to see anything about that.
Yeah.
But also, that's cool that they're actually like incorporating female characters into the game.
I didn't expect that for a World War II game.
Totally.
And so, Call of Duty has touched on the liberation of France before, but I'm excited to see what they do with this character.
Totally.
But what we did see, the first mission that we saw was Hirken Forest.
And Hirken's famous for, the Battle of Hirken Forest is famous for the Nazis would blow the tops of the trees off and create like all this shrapnel that would
rain down.
Just rain down on everyone.
And so a lot of separate skirmishes happened in Hirken, but the one we see is you're playing this 19-year-old American 1st Infantry Division, like fighting first, like draftee basically, and you're kind of like you're going through this forest, and you can hear the like sound of him like sloshing through the river, and you can hear his breathing. He sounds scared and nervous, and it's so cool how like just his breathing, I like already was like, okay, totally get the tone. And then everything hits the fan. Yeah,
so there's a little bit of a sniper scene, kind of like running through the woods, shooting. It's typical Call of Duty gunplay, but it looks really good.
It looks good. You see, there's a whole lot of Germans in that forest.
Yes. Kind of getting back to the basics where a lot of like focus on you have your squad with you,
right,
and just like a lot of overwhelming enemies. Kind of I've been recently playing some of the older Call of Duties, and it definitely feels more like that. Yeah.
And they talked about taking Call of Duty back to its roots. That's sort of their MO here. Sledgehammer, that is. And then the bombings start.
Yeah, it's like this really cool sequence where you're just like running through as all of the like trees are exploding. It looks great. It's like a classic kind of like Call of Duty like set piece moment, but it's absolutely really good.
Yeah, it's absolutely one of those like exciting World War II moments. But I like that it was tempered by the beginning part of the mission that we saw, where it's a little slower.
Yeah.
And we talked to a bunch of different departments, but one of the coolest things about the forest sequence, the bombing sequence in that forest, is the audio director told us that the team, because they're Sledgehammer Games, always brings a sledgehammer with them when they go out to record like Foley's and different sound effects. And he showed us like them just like smashing these twigs and these trees in a forest with a sledgehammer to get those sound effects, and then they magnify it to the point where it's like reverberating in your chest, and it's such a cool sequence.
Yeah, it was really rad. And then the other sequence we got to see was the actual like landing on the beaches of Normandy,
storming in Normandy.
It's not anything special in the sense that like if you've seen a Normandy invasion scene,
if you've seen one, you've seen them all sort of. And I think the reason that it wasn't like earth-shattering for me is because we don't know these characters yet, and this is a character-driven story, which I think is what you have to do, right, to separate this Normandy from all the other Normandy sequences we've seen.
That seems to be the approach they're taking with this game in general. Since they're focusing on the squad, it's like even if you're seeing familiar sequences like a storming of Normandy, the characters will like give it a new like feel, like original feel to it.
And at the beginning we kind of do get that where you're in the boats, and there's a lot of like up close shots with your squad mates, like as the boats are getting attacked.
You get to see Josh Duhamel, who's like your squad leader. He's in this game.
Yeah, he's in this game
from the Transformers movies. His animation looked really good. I was really impressed with the Kevin Spacey stuff they did in Advanced Warfare.
And so Sledgehammer's previous game was Advanced Warfare, and they did a little work on Modern Warfare 3. But yeah, Kevin Spacey like looked like Kevin Spacey in Advanced Warfare, and this is like that ramped up, like they fine-tuned the tools.
It looked really good. The scene itself was once you like landed on the beaches, it was like really cool because you're basically given this one of those devices they would use where they would like stick it into the sand to like blow up like the barricade they had so you could get through. And so you don't have a gun and you just have to run all the way to the other side of the beach.
And like you've seen a bunch of people die around you. The water is red. Like it's horrific.
You're running from cover to cover. It's really intense.
The gore doesn't feel gratuitous either. Like I really felt like they were trying to show that this was not this is unlike the Hurricane sequence. This is not like cool and exciting. It's
terrifying.
Scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Like, and you see up close like this guy's face is like blown in, and it's not super graphic. Like it's not like he's missing half his face, but
I don't feel like they're trying to glorify it the way, for example, I thought World at War maybe like went a little too far.
Right, and
one.
It does feel very like Saving Private Ryan, and they talked about that being an inspiration. But the coolest thing about when you are putting that whatever that device is, the name escapes me, but to blow up the barricades, you fumble it. And like you're like somebody who's with you is like, no, you can do it. You're almost there.
Yeah. There's this cool. I imagine there'll be like a sense of as you play the game, your character maybe gets more confident.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. The other scene they show, they kind of like skip ahead and they show the actual like you running through kind of like the trenches and dealing with the bunkers,
and getting into the bunkers.
And they. I mean, again, it's typical Call of Duty gunplay, all the weapons you can expect. Nothing new. It's World War II. You've seen all the weapons in World War II.
Yeah, they didn't invent any new weapons. They did go out and shoot all these weapons to re-record all the sound effects.
That just sounds like the coolest job.
There is like a QuickTime event that I wasn't super stoked on. Just because I'm not generally stoked on those.
Me too. It was kind of whatever. One little cool animation they showed was... at one point, you can actually do like a dive onto the ground to avoid enemy fire, which is a cool mechanic that they haven't had in previous Call of Duty games, but also added to sort of like that feeling of like being someone who's like has no idea what they're doing and like just doesn't want to die.
A 19-year-old who had a week of basic and was sent off to war.
Yeah,
you know,
so that was pretty cool.
And that's the coolest thing about the Normandy sequences. We see a lot of the animation in action, and we talked to the animation director when we were there, and basically they had to reteach. A lot of their mocap guys are like actually trained for combat, and they had to be like, no, forget everything you thought you knew. These guys in this game did not know any of those things, and that's not how they fought. They tried to minimize the amount of target, and they would turn to the side, and like that's not how you fight anymore. And they just did so much research, and I was so impressed because I got that sense watching this sequence. Like you fumble and you're staggering and you're running, and it's not clean. You're not overpowered, and I really, really liked that.
Yeah, they're definitely going back to that more like you're not a super soldier feel with this game.
You're just a dude.
You're just a dude, and I really like that about it. So that was it for the single player. We did get to... They talked about multiplayer, but we didn't actually get to see any.
We didn't see anything, but...
They're going to do a full reveal of that at E3, they said.
Yeah, it'll be playable on the show floor, and since E3 is open to the public, that means fans and anybody curious can check it out, which is cool. But I think the thing that stuck out to me the most from what they said about multiplayer was that it was going to be more narrative, like Axis versus Allies battles, instead of just kind of like an all-out thing. I don't think they would ever get rid of TDM.
No, this was specifically a mode called War, they said, that was going to be like a narrative-driven, kind of makes me think of Domination from last year's Battlefield 1, which kind of had that same thing where they would intercut it with like text or not text, voiceover where they talked about like the actual historical battles.
And we at this point, we can only speculate, but that's kind of what it seemed like they were going for. And then the other thing was that there would be Destiny like the tower kind of social spaces.
That's weird. And I'm just now realizing like Activision owns Destiny, so like that maybe kind of makes sense.
True.
That they're trying to like incorporate elements of that. But yeah, like the idea that you have this sort of like camp, like, you know, where you can hang out with like, what was it, 40 people?
I think they said something around that. It's going to be like, oh, you can chat with people, you can customize stuff. It seems like you'll be able to like create a character. It sounded like, because they were saying they wanted it to feel like you're you've enlisted. Like
totally, yeah. So that kind of sounds like you have like a character that you build up.
Yeah.
Which interesting idea.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Curious
how. I feel like Call of Duty players just kind of want to play Call of Duty and maybe aren't as interested in that social space. But it's a neat idea.
We'll see. Yeah, for sure. I mean, maybe this is something that's for players who are interested in World War II more so than they are Call of Duty. Who knows? And And then the last thing was they were like, co-op's a thing.
Yep.
But we didn't see any of that. So
yeah, they said like there will be a new enemy, but that was about it.
what does that mean?
Doesn't sound like zombies. They kind of, I think it's something else.
Yeah.
But
and my
something.
hopes for Pacific Theater were pretty dashed for this one. So it seems like just European front. But I do want to stress, like, everybody we talked to, every department we went to, everyone was like, yeah, the first thing we did was we just read about World War II and we watched documentaries, and they looked at gun manuals, like the field manuals that soldiers got, and like they just totally immersed themselves in the history. And that was the coolest part of this studio visit for me.
Yeah. A big thing for me about, like, because their whole tagline is that they're going back to their roots.
Yep. That's what they've been saying.
There's like the setting, right, of World War II. Like,
Obviously.
that's the obvious going back to your roots. But I feel like there's more to it than that. Like, there's the tonal approach and like how they handle World War II that I think, like, when you just look at the way Call of Duty's kind of handled war
Lately,
and skirmishes, and it feels a little more like bombastic and a little dude bro-ish in kind of their approach to it.
hoorah.
Yeah, exactly. And Call of Duty was always a little bit more respectful than that, the originals. And I was kind of worried, like, okay, are you actually going to handle this appropriately? And from what they've shown and what they've talked about, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think they're on the right path.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked to animation, audio, narrative, studio heads, and art, those departments. And everybody was like, yeah, we want to show respect for not only the people who fought in this war, but the people who were affected by this war. And from what we've seen, it seems like they're striking a good balance between, like, those exciting set pieces like in Hurricane and something a little more with a little more depth, and you know, getting better facial animation technology and getting that range of emotion is part of that. The acting is part of that, and making sure it's true to what the experience of being a soldier in World War II was like.
Yeah.
And all of that was doing their homework, and so that's what makes me most interested in this game. For sure.
100%. And then I'm also just, like, really curious to see, like, just gameplay. Like, it's kind of nice to go back to that more, like, simplistic feel. Especially, like, I'm really curious how that multiplayer is going to play out. You know, like, you can't wall run anymore. You can't double jump.
Yeah, like, what does that mean for esports? These are all questions I still have.
Yeah, really curious about that.
Yeah, I think we had a really good impression, and I just want to see more. If you want to see more, we have news and features up on GameSpot right now that you can check out, and the trailer is out and all of that. So be sure to look at those things. If you're curious, let us know what you think in the comments, and thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye-bye.